got a video. It's actually a court hearing about a tragic ending to parental alienation. Uh, and if you've seen some of my other videos, I've been over. I mentioned, several times that the kids are the ones who pay the ultimate price when they're in bad situations. And I've also mentioned several times that this whole quote unquote maternal instinct is a ridiculous myth. I mean, I don't like the stories that are out there that I've come across is just ridiculous to see that and still believe that that's the reality that we live in, is that every mother just has this natural maternal instincts where they're always going to look out for the best interest of the child. So in this video, we're going to listen to this man's story, and we're going to break down the issues that he had to deal with and how the justice system failed not only him but failed his son as well. So let's get started.
I was called in by a CPS investigator, and I was judged, tried, and convicted in her mind as being extremely guilty before I even arrived at the Collin County CPS office. I tried to explain to her that, again, we had been in a long battle. For 8 months, we had been, my ex-wife and I had been engaged in a highly contentious divorce and custody battle, and that this was a false allegation. Unfortunately, they did not believe me, and I was charged with sexual improprieties with my son. It caused
Under a false allegation. And just to be clear, I'm sure you heard the heavy breathing. That is not me. That is whoever is holding the camera. But you heard what he said. He got called into CPS over a false allegation because the mother wanted to alienate the child from him. So she fabricated this whole situation that was believed with no real investigation. I mean, like he said, he got called in, and before he even arrived at the office, they automatically presumed he was guilty, extremely guilty, and he ended up being charged.
Cost me my teaching, my teaching position, as well as my freedom. I was denied access to my son for over 4 months, despite my...
Over a false allegation. Denied access to his son. He lost his freedom and his career over a false allegation against a bitter mother. And in order for that to happen, it's the justice system that has to put him there. And they allowed that to happen without any real investigation.
Attempts to explain and express to CPS that there was a wide variety of brainwashing activities going on by his mother. CPS investigated me for 12 months. It took 3 quarters.
See, they investigated him for 12 months, and he just sit there and said, this lady's brainwashing him, and they just blew that off like it was no big deal. And I'm sure any man who's ever had to deal with them when they're, talking about the mothers and issues that, or concerns there, they just kind of blow that off. And I know that, for a fact. I've seen the look on their face. I've heard the tone of their voice like they didn't believe anything I was saying. And just like they obviously did with this man. Didn't believe a word he was saying about the mother, and yet they investigated him for 12 months for a false allegation. But you let a man open up a case against a mother, they're going to open and shut that as quick as they can, if they open it at all. They're going to do everything they can to close that case as quick as they can and move on to the next one, because they're not going to mess with that.
Court trials to be able to finally earn full visitation with my son. Each time CPS pushed that I would not be allowed to have any visitation with my son in the name of erring on the side of caution.
And the thing I find so interesting about that is he said it took 3 court hearings to finally get full access to his son, where I'm assuming that meant unsupervised. Uh, and he said each time CPS should push the issue that he was not going to get that. And it's funny, or it's not funny, but it's interesting to me, is because I was personally told by a caseworker that they do not get involved in custody cases. That's what I was told. And yet clearly that's not true.
In one particular hearing, the judge even stated that he had heard multiple allegations against me, but yet was never provided any real evidence to support the claims.
That's what I'm talking about. That right there is one of the biggest reasons I picked this one. And in a few minutes you're going to get the other reason. But he said even the judge stated that I've heard multiple false allegations against you, but I have not seen one real piece of evidence. So this guy lost his career, he lost his freedom, and he lost time with his son over a charge that had no real evidence to back it up.
How old was your son at the time?
He was 6
And he was interviewed?
by CPS 3 times. I frequently reported.
He was 6 years old and interviewed by CPS 3 times. And I would guarantee you he was not around when that was going on. Wow. And a 6-year-old at that. A 6-year-old. So, let's just say, in a custody battle, a 6-year-old says, I want to go live with my dad. Do you think the court is really going to listen to a 6-year-old? You know? And at least from what I read, they don't usually listen to a kid until they're, 13, unless there is actually evidence of a real crime. But as he just stated, there was no real evidence of a crime.
To CPS that my ex-wife was brainwashing him, that she was engaged in parental alienation or pathogenic parenting. For 12 months, CPS refused to believe me. She had a bachelor's degree and experience as a police officer. She had a master's degree in clinical psychology. She had a PhD in criminology and taught courses at the University of Texas at Dallas in victimology. Yet none of that made any difference to CPS and their investigation.
So basically, or at least what it sounds to me, is like he was trying to let them know she knows how to make something look real, even if it's not. She knows she knows all that she needs in order to prove something without factual, physical evidence.
For 12 months, CPS believed me to be a danger to my son. They only changed their mind when, after a week-long jury trial, the sole custody of my son was awarded to me, and she was stripped of her parental rights. And after that, she was allowed to go home, and she shot my son. And
Look at that. That right there is the other reason I picked this one. Because, people need to face this reality. I know it's a hard reality to face. But we cannot make the necessary changes in our system if we are not willing to face the problems that our system is creating. He was investigated for 12 months. And they believed he was the bad guy for 12 months. And after a week-long trial that ended with her losing her parental rights and custody, then they realized he was telling the truth and she was the problem. It took a 6-year-old getting shot before they realized she was the problem. Does it really need to get that bad? And how many more kids are going to have to suffer that fate before somebody wakes up and starts realizing what is really going on here? As I stated in the beginning of this video, maternal instincts is a myth. That not every woman has that, okay? And this case right here is proof of that. She would rather take that child out of this world than to let this man have full custody of a living child. And it took that for CPS to realize she was the problem, not him.
And shot herself. Only then did CPS begin to believe that maybe she, not I, might have been the problem. I asked, no, I begged, that as CPS is looking to reevaluate how they are taught, to include the role that they can play in highly contentious child custody battles, how that she was able to manipulate them to believing her and not seeing the true evidence that many other medical professionals did see. Parental alienation.
And how many guys have had to deal with that manipulation from the women? And out of those stats, how many of the women do you think were actually good mothers? Because most of the time when a woman is trying to take full custody of a kid, it's because she knows how much it's going to hurt the man. And that's all she cares about. She wants to hurt the man and she wants to take his money. How? Oh, you're leaving me? Okay, I'm taking your kid and your money. That doesn't make a good parent. Especially when you're using a kid as a tool. Like, that's not a weapon. That's not a tool. That is a living being who has feelings and emotions. And I guarantee you, not out of all these women who end up with full custody because that's what they wanted, I guarantee you every one of them never stopped to think about whether or not the child wants to be taken away from their dad. And I'm going to do another video probably not right after this one. I'm going to probably give it another couple of days. But I'm going to do another video about parental alienation that actually shows how happy some of these kids are with their dads who they are being alienated from. So, I mean, you know, it really affects the kids as well as the dads. But so many mothers these days are only concerned with what they want. And this case right here is proof. And with all of the people that were involved in this case, it should not have ended like that. But it did, because nobody wants to acknowledge the fact that not all mothers are good mothers. And the longer y'all keep playing with this narrative, oh, it's maternal instinct, she carried the child, she's got a natural bond with the child. Obviously, this mother didn't. Because she didn't have a problem going home and shooting this kid. And then took the easy way out because she already knew what the consequences were. So she didn't even have to face the consequences. She didn't have to live with the fact of what she did. And yet this man has to live with the fact that he had to bury his kid. Right after being awarded full custody. That should have been the happiest day of his life and turned into the worst day of his life. In a single moment. In a single second. And it took a whole year and some odd months and many court dates and probably court fees as well before it came to that decision. That maybe she was the problem. Maybe he was not the problem after all. And it took the death of a 6-year-old boy for them to realize that. And the bad thing about that is CPS is Child Protective Services. And that child was not protected.
Pathogenic parenting, hostile aggressive parenting, whatever you might want to call it, is real, and CPS plays a big role in the front lines of protecting children. Thank you very much.
Right. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Very sorry to hear your story and your loss of your son. Very sorry to hear that. Just so I understand maybe the context within which to receive your testimony, is it your opinion that your experience was, unique or somehow really the result of a overly aggressive office or the policy of the office in your backyard, or do you think it's more systematic within CPS? I mean, are you testifying today, and is it your opinion that there's a agency problem, or is it a problem maybe with a rogue caseworker or somebody that's overly aggressive? I mean, I'm just trying to understand what you're...
Yes, sir.
No, it is absolutely an agency problem. Because that is not an individual case, and he's going to answer that shortly. But I mean, that is nationwide. All right, especially when it comes to separating a child from the mother, that is nationwide. As I stated in the previous video, actually, I'm pretty sure it was the one before this one, is that no lawyer wants to be the one to take a kid away or be responsible for taking a kid away from a mother. No CPS worker wants to be responsible for taking a kid away from the mother. And no judge wants to be the one to give that order. And yet when people have that mindset, when you have that generalization, because the problem with the courts in that situation is that's what they're doing. They're generalizing the situation. They're generalizing all mothers is like this one. No, that's an individual thing. Like I said, not all mothers are good mothers. There are some really good mothers out there. There are some really good fathers out there. There are some really bad mothers out there. And there are some really bad fathers out there. You cannot generalize that. You have to individualize that. And it's the system that is not doing that. It's the system who is not holding each individual accountable for their actions. And what I don't understand is how it was so easy for her to fool all of these people into believing that he did the things that he was accused of doing, but he couldn't get these people to believe that she was manipulating them. Even though that was the truth. What she was saying about him was a lie. What he was saying about her was the truth. Yet they believed her over him. Why was it so easy to believe her? Because she's the mother, right?
5 years ago, I would have said, yes, it was a unique situation. Since then, I've discovered that no, this is a systematic problem, that it is, as I've talked with people all over the state, they frequently, CPS is called, they do not understand the issues that are associated with parental alienation, the signs, the symptoms, and frequently jump to the wrong conclusion and do not want to fully appreciate that there might be a lot more going on than that they were willing to understand. And again, a lot.
They really don't. And from what I've seen in my experiences, they seem to kind of view each case as just another case number. And judges and lawyers are the same way. It's just another case number to them. They don't actually consider the fact that this is a living being that is being affected by all of this. And I've seen that firsthand. This is why I'm so passionate about this issue. Is because I've seen it firsthand, and I've seen the effects that it has on not just my kid, but other kids as well. And there are so many stories like this that are out there. That's why he realized that it's not a unique individual problem. He realized it's a common problem because it was unique to him at the time because he had never heard about anybody close to him dealing with that. But as he started reaching out for support in what he was dealing with now, he realized he wasn't the only one. There's so many other people out there, and there's so many other cases that I've come across. I mean, horrible, horrible cases where CPS was involved many times, and I actually covered it in one of my videos. I'll bring him up again because it was a tragic story. AJ Friend. I mean, even if you're not going to watch the video, please look it up. I mean, the things that little boy went through and the things that CPS allowed him to go through, even after all of the reports that were made, that was ridiculous and should have never happened. And I felt so bad for that kid because he went through so much torment, so much pain, really. I mean, a lot of pain and suffering for that little boy. And then, I mean, this man here's got to deal with the aftermath. The wife doesn't. She took her own self out. She doesn't have to face the consequences, and she knew she wasn't. But all she cared about was hurting him. Oh, you're not taking my kid away from me. If I can't have them, nobody can. And I'm telling you, I have come across so many stories where mothers have had that same mindset.
Lack of understanding, a lack of education, training and exposure to the symptoms, the signs, the causes of parental alienation. More going on than that they were willing to understand. And again, a lack of understanding, a lack of education, training and exposure to the symptoms, the signs, the causes of parental alienation.
And it really goes back to a video I posted a while back. I think it was a month or two ago. And one of the things I said in it, and I meant it, is that my hope is that we can take these issues beyond the training room and actually use them in the field, because people need to be better trained on this stuff. If you're going to be in an authority career, if you're going to be in child protective services, if you're going to be with the police department, if you're going to be a lawyer, if you're going to be a judge, you need to be aware of things like this. You need to understand that things like this really do happen. So your decisions, especially in a court and a lawyer and CPS, your decisions matter when it comes to that. Your decision pretty much underlines the fate of that kid. And the wrong call, this is the worst part about it. The wrong call means the kid's life. So, I mean, you need to, and I've been in the court system, and I know many guys who, if you're watching this video, I'm sure you have too, and you've seen how quick they are to just give a ruling. Like, you can't give no more than a 2-second or a 30-second, 2-minute thought process as to what your decision is going to be. This is a life at stake here. Alright, and you need to individualize every single person based on their action. This guy got charged, lost time with his kid, lost custody, went through a whole bunch of money and everything over a false allegation. And everything he was saying was undermined and blown off, even though it was true. And who paid the price? The 6-year-old boy did. Because, I mean, don't get me wrong. Obviously, this guy is upset, and I would be too as a dad. But the kid was only 6 years old. He barely even started his life. And how are we as a society going to act like this stuff doesn't happen? Pretending it doesn't happen is not going to keep these kids alive. In fact, it's only going to cause more to die. So everybody, I know this was a pretty intense video to go over, especially with the outcome and how it ended. But as I stated, I mean, this is what we need to be. We have to address this stuff. we have to acknowledge the fact that things like this really do happen. And I'm going to end it with the same question that I asked in my previous video. How bad does it have to be before the court systems and CPS realize that maybe the dad is the better option? And what measures and what are we doing to keep these kids safe? To make sure, because honestly, when it was ruled that he had full custody, they should have had a deputy go back to the house with her to make sure that nothing happened to that kid because of situations like this. So if you want to talk about, well, what can we do better, start with that. If a dad is granted full custody, have a sheriff or a deputy or some form of police officer go there with her. Don't get there 10 minutes after her. Be waiting when she shows up to make sure nothing happens to the child until the dad gets there to retrieve the child. That's one good step you could take. But again, I ended on this question: how bad does it have to be before our system realizes, and I say system because it's CPS, law enforcement, lawyers, and the court system, before they realize that sometimes the dad is the better option? Don't make any more kids suffer, man. This has got to stop. And on that note, if you like the content, please subscribe. There's more to come. If there's anything else you want to see me cover, please let me know in the comments. That's what it's for. If you agree or disagree with anything I say, by all means, like I said, that's what the comment section's for. So I'm going to end the video there, and if you made it this far, thank you so much for your support, and I'll see you in the next one. Yeah.